Do you ever wonder how to measure spiritual growth? Not a measurement to compare yourself with anyone else, but simply as a gauge to see how far you've come. As travelers, we're each on the same journey, yet each of our journeys are very different. So, how do we know whether we're growing spiritually? This podcast is all about helping you with your spiritual growth so you can overcome obstacles and manifest your destiny, to crystallize and materialize any dream, basically to have success on life's journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. So let's get started. Hi there, and welcome. My name is Remy, like Do Re Mi. I'm a best-selling author and creator of the Get Unstuck Revolution. I help extraordinary women just like you dissolve the obstacles in your path so you can bring success to you. Now let's get started with today's video. Okay, let me jump off the screen here and switch to my laptop. And you guys are welcome to join me on video or on the audio. If you're listening on iTunes, you can jump over to my website at unlockyourhiddenpower.com, and that's where you'll find the video. So let's get rolling. It seems like we're sometimes a magnet for chaos and obstacles. And it's not that the universe hates us. We actually came to this planet for the game, for the contrast, so that we could see the difference between what we want and what we don't want, and then expand beyond our fears and all the situations that can make us question ourselves. But how are we doing in this game? Are we growing and expanding? Or are we losing ground because we haven't overcome the same old patterns that keep wanting to trip us up? If you've ever wondered if there's a way to measure how you're doing, that's what we're talking about today. Because until we know exactly where we're supposed to make strides, where we're supposed to course correct, and those tricky blind spots, we just might continue to attract challenges and circumstances that seem to get in the way of our success. If you'd like to see success in full abundance along life's journey, and if you're wanting to tap into a greater knowingness and align with the higher consciousness of your infinite self, instead of the lower ego thinking and negative thoughts that push success away, then this is for you. It's time to be unabashedly, unapologetically, happily untethered to ego thinking. It's time to align with the higher energies of our soul's path instead. This episode is for you if you wonder how to measure spiritual growth. What is it that keeps messing up our vibration? Is there a greater purpose for spiritual growth? Well, these episodes are about how to find your hidden power when you want to transform challenges into successes. I like to call it the audacity of alchemy. Because when we're feeling stuck, it's never the situation that has us stuck, it's our energy that's become stuck in anxiety, overwhelm, boredom, doubts, worries, frustrations, indecision, and even anger. And often this is because of a spiritual injury that we've experienced, some kind of hidden trauma. So it isn't the pain of our situation, it's the pain of not being connected into the natural energy of who we really are, of being connected to that magical part of us that's a creative vibrational being who can use positive energies to create what we want and bring it into physical manifestation. We can allow our manifestations to materialize and not get stuck in the negative vibrations that block them. These positive energies that we talk about so much are where we find the magic of alchemy, because our choice of frequency, our choice of those positive thoughts and emotions can change the course of our journey. And as we're on this journey of spiritual growth, we have a lot of external circumstances to deal with, but our growth is very much an inside job. And today we're talking about how to measure our progress. Well, one common way to measure where we are is that what we see in the outer world is a reflection for how we're doing in the inner world. But that's kind of a broad statement, isn't it? It's kind of broad, and it isn't really a measurement that we can do anything with. Another common paradigm is that we must become a vibrational match of what we want to manifest. You know how much I love that Einstein quote that when we match the frequency of our desired reality, we cannot help but get that reality. And when we achieve that alignment, well, poof, everything we want should be at our fingertips, right? But exactly how do we do that with so many distractions and emotions and different pieces of life to deal with? Well, as somebody said to me in one of my workshops, am I supposed to just sit around all day and align with the perfect job? I have things to do. Well, we sometimes find ourselves looping back into the same thought patterns, the same emotional patterns, and even the same dysfunctional patterns, trying to fix our lives until we address the core issues that are causing these patterns that mess with our vibration. And these core issues can't usually be addressed externally because their origin is internal. And that's why I often say that fixing the problem will only make it expand because problems are external. And with all this looping and dysfunction and dealing with ego thinking and external problems and all that, oh my gosh, it's no wonder that people come to me and say, I'm feeling stuck. No matter what I do, I seem to be in this very same place. All right. So I wanted to break it down today and let's just see if you're as stuck as you sometimes feel. Let's get out a measuring stick and just do a quick check because you might have come along a lot farther than you've realized. Let's find out where we are on our spiritual growth journey. When we look at the topic of spiritual growth, let's think of this as coming into spiritual union with ourselves, an inner union with our own soul. But there's more than just inner union because a lot of the spiritual journey that we go through is realizing the unity that we're all a part of, the oneness that we're one with all that is. So it's an inner union, and we're also coming into union with all that is, if that makes sense. Okay, so we hear a lot of talk these days about our planet Earth shifting into a 5D or a fifth dimension consciousness. And you may even be going through an ascension yourself. But for today, let's just keep it in kind of a wide range and focus on spiritual growth in general. We aren't here to focus on what parts of us are blocked or broken. We aren't damaged or in any way lacking. The roller coaster ride that we're on serves a much greater purpose, and that is to help us release and dissolve all those things that may keep us in a lower vibration, that may keep us locked in the old 3D or third dimension ego thinking that is full of negative thoughts, make wrong, and fear based questions and assumptions. So, the spiritual growth journey that we're on is there to help us be rid of repressed emotions, trauma, old soul contracts, and even past life covenants that keep us in a low frequency. The idea is to lift our vibration enough that we can enter this new higher fifth dimension consciousness. Some people call it heaven on earth, and manifest this into our physical world, bringing the fifth dimension consciousness into our physical world. Well, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard before, right? So, if I can bottom line this, yes, what we see in the outer world is a reflection for how we're doing in the inner world. It's reflecting to us what we hold true inside ourselves. And the spiritual journey we're on is intended to shed external thoughts and beliefs and emotions that are false so that we can return to our inner truth instead. We're setting aside ego thinking and returning to our inner truth instead. So it isn't just undoing our thoughts and patterns, it's also evolving and coming to believe in what's true. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to think or believe, of course. What's true for you is true. We might think of this spiritual growth journey as a journey to find the truth of our divinity or the truth of who we really are. The life experiences we have are part of an illusion, and that illusion is designed for us to realize what's real and what's true. All right. So let's look at some of the signposts of spiritual growth that will help us manifest our truth so that the outer world reflects our inner world in a more beautiful way. Sound good? Okay. I have for you 7 signposts of spiritual growth. Now, this is based not only on my own journey, but more than that, it's based on the commonalities I've seen in all my workshops. You may have come to this Earth School to learn something very different, but hopefully, these 7 signposts will give you a gauge or a measurement on how you're doing with your own growth. Use these in whatever way works for you. And here we go with signpost number 1. You recognize the illusion. We talk about this every week. We live on a duality planet, right versus wrong, black versus white, yes versus no. We're here not just for discernment, being able to see the difference between what we want and what we don't want, but also for the choices that come as a result of our discernment. In other words, we can see what we don't want and in that moment immediately see what we do want. But do we make the choice for that thing that we do want, or are we falling victim to the illusion? And what I mean by that is, are we falling victim to our fears and our ego thinking, those negative thoughts that block what we truly want? This discernment and choice is what clears our energy field of old 3D fear based thoughts coming from the perception that we're somehow separate from all that is. And once we clear that perception, we can then shift to a higher frequency, better thoughts and emotions, so that we can lift our vibration into a 5D consciousness that's based in love and not fear. We see from the perception of unity that all is one. Now, if you'd like to know more about the illusion and how to win that game, you can go back to the episode called Perfect Timing, the Scientific Secret of Divine Timing. By the way, this is my all time favorite episode. It was called Perfect Timing. All right. So, this is the first signpost that you recognize the illusion. Give yourself a score on this if you'd like to. How would you rate your progress on a scale of 1 to 10? Okay, so let's move on to the next signpost. And this is number 2. You have relinquished ego thinking. You know, it's often our energy or our emotions that become stuck in anxiety and overwhelm and doubts, worries, frustrations, and all that. All these negative emotions can be chalked up to our ego, which is really there to protect us. But the problem is, it's all based in fear. All ego thinking is based in fear, and that's usually what protection is. Protection is based in fear. We want to protect ourselves from being hurt, but that's based in fear. We remember from the Course in Miracles that only love is real and anything else is unreal. Or if I say it another way, anything that isn't based in a positive, loving, patient, compassionate energy is a fear based energy. Did you hear that? Anything that isn't based in a positive, loving, patient, compassionate energy is a fear based energy. So if we can recognize these negative thoughts and emotions when they come up, well, it's up to us to flip it, to find the positive, to find the blessings. In other words, to find where the love is in our situation or where we need to expand our thinking toward more love and patience and compassion. So it isn't our situation that causes us pain. It isn't a matter of protecting ourselves from pain. The real pain is in not being connected in the natural energy of who we really are, of being connected to that infinite self that's a creative vibrational being who can use positive vibrations or positive thoughts to create what we want or turn things around to a better than expected outcome. And we can't do this if we're trapped inside ego's negative thinking. Okay, so give yourself a score on this one if you'd like. How would you rate your progress? Have you relinquished ego thinking? And here comes the third signpost. You're no longer attached to outcomes. Yes, we have a desired reality, but as Chris March said on Project Runway several years ago, he was one of the finalists, bless his heart, and he said, I don't count on this win, and I don't discount it either. That would be an example of not being attached to an outcome. For me, I like to use a mantra that I'm open to possibilities even greater than I've imagined. That would be another example. By the way, this is probably the number one single greatest difficulty that people tell me they have, being detached. Probably because we have such a goal oriented society. And so the idea is to be clear about a desired reality, be clear about it, and then surrender or be open to something even better, richer, brighter, stronger. Okay, go ahead and give yourself a score on this one if you'd like to. Are you 100% there? 85% there? How would you rate yourself? Are you no longer attached to outcomes? All right, here comes the next one. And this is number 4. You have mastered unconditional acceptance. A surefire sign that we are coming into inner union with our soul is that the pendulum no longer swings because we've settled into acceptance. We feel good when things are good, and we feel just as good when they aren't good. We no longer come unhinged. Our pendulum doesn't violently swing back and forth because if we do become unhinged, well, then we still may have some more stuff to heal. And we no longer respond and react to what others do or what they don't do, what they say or what they don't say. We no longer feel devastated. We no longer do a nosedive under the covers when things go wrong, because if we do, there's still not enough inner balance to hold our foundation steady. We want to be able to surrender to graceful allowing. It's one of my favorite phrases, graceful allowing. We're able to surrender to unconditional acceptance of what is, and nothing disturbs our harmony and equilibrium. You know, I have a friend who went through just a terrible divorce. He wasn't coping very well. In fact, he was partying a lot and abusing alcohol. And when he was in therapy, his therapist asked him to find a mantra. And the one he chose was, "It's all good. It's all good." And he told me this, and I laughed, and I told him, "But what if it's not all good? What if the world is falling apart?" Because in my own world, that was exactly my experience. You couldn't tell me it's all good. I couldn't even believe it. And that's why now I teach that when you choose a mantra, there should be no room for argument within it. And it's why I love things like I'm open to possibilities even greater than I've imagined. That's something that I can't argue with. My pendulum doesn't swing. I don't vacillate. In fact, it increases my harmony and puts me on that track for unconditional acceptance. So I hope you have a mantra like this that just brings immediate comfort for you no matter what. We want to be in a place where our inner state no longer depends or is affected by our outer experiences. Okay, so that's mastering unconditional acceptance. Go ahead and give yourself a score on that one if you'd like to. How would you rate your progress? Have you mastered unconditional acceptance? And here comes the next one. And this is number 5. You've stabilized your own feminine and masculine energies. You know, I did an episode recently called Goddess on the Loose, the choice to heal the wounded feminine. And we talked about whether we lean too heavily toward masculine or toward feminine energy. We talked about how to find the balance, and we talked about why this is sometimes why we feel that push pull of doubts and indecision. In a nutshell, our masculine qualities would be action, power, and a warrior energy. And by contrast, our feminine qualities would be creativity, vulnerability, surrendering to the flow. And you can go back and grab that episode if you like. It was called Goddess on the Loose. Really quite wonderful episode, one of my favorites. And so it seems much easier for some reason to heal our wounded masculine side. And it sometimes takes much longer to heal and embrace the feminine side. And some people feel that this is because there has to be a complete sense of feeling safe in order to re embrace the utter vulnerability that comes with being in our true feminine receptivity and feminine power. Now, I'm not talking about gender, but energy. Feminine receptivity and power is not gender specific, it's an energy. And so I'll give you an example. Imagine a musician with an artistic soul. Now, this guy may have a strong feminine energy, and he may get tripped up by the need to protect himself, which we already know is a fear based energy protection. And even as a guy, he may have had experiences that have taught him not to be vulnerable or he'll get hurt. He may find himself in a smackdown, right? So, whether we're a man or a woman, it won't matter. We want to feel safe in embracing the utter vulnerability that comes with being in our true receptivity and our true power. Not only are wounds around safety an issue, but also around hundreds of thousands of years of patriarchal conditioning that has taught us that femininity is less valuable than masculinity. Witches burned at the stake, matriarchs disempowered, mothers' babies being tortured and killed as punishment, the entire female race being the victims of sexual aggression and abuse for thousands of years, and all these past lives as both male and female. Right? And so these traumas and spiritual injuries are often deeply embedded, and this may need to be addressed in order to balance the inner masculine and feminine. Sometimes this takes therapy, sometimes PTSD treatment, sometimes spiritual guidance. And as I mentioned recently, sometimes it's as simple as remembering and acknowledging what we've been through as a collective or even just individually. Just remembering it, acknowledging it, bringing it into our consciousness is sometimes enough to let it go. But as long as there's still anger and distrust, as long as we're charged up toward men in our outer reality, especially, there may also be anger and distrust toward our own inner masculine because we may have perpetrated these crimes on others in past lives. So that's number 5. Do you feel that you're balanced? Do you feel that your feminine and masculine energies are balanced? Go ahead and give yourself a score on this one. Are you 100% there? 85% there? How would you rate yourself? Can you be completely in the non resistance of surrender and allowing? That would be the feminine energy. Do you trust your divine feminine power and your knowingness, your intuition, your inspiration? And on the other side, can you express healthy anger without berating someone else with aggression? Are you balanced between your feminine and masculine energies? All right, let's move on to number 6. You understand the power of being authentic and imperfect. Everything inauthentic has to go in order to create inner union with our own soul. We may not be perfect, but we know when we're authentic. And this is the path that we need to walk in order to come into a place that we can align to the outer manifestation of that inner union. And this is the reward of our journey. Our transformation is the reward. Being rid of ego thinking is the reward. Living in the 5D consciousness of love and patience and compassion and unity is the reward. Because when we have successfully finished this inner process within ourselves, we will find that we have unlocked our hidden power. So go ahead and give yourself a quick score on this one. Do you understand the power of being authentic, even if it's a little bit imperfect? Give yourself a quick score on this one if you'd like to. And let's do our last signpost. This is number 7. You're living your life purpose. Oh, this is a big one. If you haven't found your true calling yet, there's no need to lose your mind. This is probably the number one question I have always gotten, and continue to get. What's my mission, or what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Sometimes it's a really big mission, and sometimes it changes as we evolve on our journey. I work with people one-on-one every single day to explore this question and find their answers. Well, you can rest easy that you've already been prepared for who you're becoming and what you came here to do. I'm also a big believer that our life purpose, our mission, is to recognize who we are as a creative vibrational being and to use our positive energies and emotions, because this is our hidden power. And so this is our purpose while we're here. Not only does it help us with our mission and what we're meant for, but it's a huge impact and inspiration for others around us. So give yourself a score on this one around living your life purpose. How would you rate your progress? Not your destination, but the progress. So there you have it, my 7 signposts of spiritual growth. I'll put them all on the screen for you here. This is based not only on my own journey, but more than that, it's based on all the commonalities that I've seen in people who write into my podcast, who are on my webinars, who have contributed or read my books, who have been in my workshops. I hear these things over and over again. You may have come to the Earth School to learn something very different than what you're seeing here, but hopefully these 7 signposts will give you a gauge or a measurement on how you're doing with your own growth. You may even see where you can cross one of these off because it just isn't part of your Earth Mastery School. And then you may have something that you want to substitute or add in. Okay. So I promised to give you a simple way to measure your spiritual growth, and that was to give yourself a score for each of these 7 categories. Now remember, this is not to compare yourself with anyone else, but simply as a gauge. When you ask, where am I? Am I where I'm supposed to be? How far have I come, or what do I still need to do? So, for instance, you may have scored yourself 10 on most of these categories, maybe 5 in one category, maybe 8 in another. That would be a total of, what is that, 6.3 out of a possible 7. Well, that might be higher than you thought. I only mention this because sometimes our ego thinking beats us up as if we're a total loser, which the ego loves to profess. Sometimes we need to just take a moment to acknowledge for ourselves how far we've truly come. And if in this measurement that we did today, you find that you aren't as far along as you've hoped, well, what I did for myself is I took some notes on my opportunities for growth. And so you can do the same if you're so inspired. As I've mentioned before, the practice of surrender doesn't come as easy for me as it does for other people. But the opportunity to cooperate with universal energies, well, that comes very easy for me. And so that's an example of how I've used this to continue to come along with my own spiritual growth, just to give you an idea, so that I can keep my own thoughts and my own energy connected into this higher stream of consciousness. So the idea is to not beat yourself up where you're not getting it, but to maneuver and navigate and find those areas that do work so that your progress can continue. Maybe you'd like to do the same for yourself, or maybe this exercise has created some inspiration for how you might course correct if you'd like to. As we empower ourselves toward self expression and who we are at our core without the negative thoughts and emotions that can drain us, we're choosing a higher frequency, higher and better thoughts, because our choice of frequency, our choice of more positive emotions, can change the course of our journey. So, reflecting back on everything that we covered today, how can you apply what you've learned? Had you ever before wondered how to measure spiritual growth? Not a measurement to compare yourself with anyone else, but just simply as a gauge to see how far you've come, if you're where you hoped you would be. As travelers, we're each on the same journey, yet each of our journeys is very different. So, are you surprised to see how far along you've come on this journey? Well, I hope this helps you as you're using the powers of alchemy to transform challenges and obstacles into positive new successes. This podcast is all about helping you have success on your spiritual growth journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. If you still can't get your head around what's got you stuck, you can tell me about it. You can send me a question to questions at unlockyourhiddenpower.com, or you may not know that you can schedule a one-on-one session with your own personal unstuckologist, that's me, by visiting instantbreakthroughsession.com. This private session is designed to help you tap into your greatest resource, that's you, and together we can make quite a team toward calling in the transformational powers of alchemy. In our time together, we'll uncover your single biggest stuck point, the one you might not be able to see. And we'll also go over the most genius way to create clarity so you can just move forward while one obstacle after another is obliterated. And we'll create a strategy to get you moving in a really good direction, the one that's aligned with your life purpose. If this sounds like a match made in heaven, you can hop on over to instantbreakthroughsession.com right now and book the time slot that works best for you. Well, thanks for joining me today, and I'm wishing you a life filled with all the alchemy you need to bring success to you. Feel free to share this video with anyone you know who's feeling stuck, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.